Your $50 a lesson music student is actually worth $2,000, and most music schools and music teachers have no idea why. Myself being a guitar teacher, for the longest time, I had no idea how much a student was actually worth to me over the long term. So because of this, I built a calculator to basically get that exact number and figure for you. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. I'm basically going to jump right into a live example how this works and show you how you can get this figure yourself. So let's do it. Alrighty, so here we are. And our main goal, as I said already, is to answer the question, what is one student actually worth to you? So it really just comes down to three figures that we need. We basically need an amount that they're paying, number one. We need a percent that you keep after any costs that have to be delegated out right away. And we lastly need a duration that they stay. That's really all that's required to get a basic version of this number. So I'm going to explain each one, how you can figure it out on your own, what you need to know, and some of the things like that. So, alrighty, let's start with our first figure. So monthly tuition per student. So in other words, what you charge one student each month. So for example, if you charge $150 a month for lessons, if you charge $200 a month for lessons, you'll put whatever that figure is. Similarly, let's say you have different prices. So let's say that you do 30-minute lessons, you do 45-minute lessons, hour lessons, you have a band program, whatever it is, you might have different pricing options. So if that's the case, all you're going to do is you're just going to basically total up your monthly revenue from the previous month, or ideally an average of the last previous months, drop it in here, say it's $5,000 like this, and then you'll take again the total students from last month or the average over the past X amount of months, and you'll just drop it in there as well. So say 25 students. That's all you would do for that. Let's just go with a flat example right now for easy sake. So $200 a month per student. First figure, done. Second figure, what percentage do you keep after paying your teacher? So first, to make it clear, if you are a solo teacher, you don't pay a teacher, you take home everything. So if that's the case, you would just keep 100%, right? Now, if you're a music school, not 1,000, 100. If you're a music school, you're going to probably dish out a percentage of each student's payment to a teacher. So if that's the case, maybe you only keep 50% and you give the other 50 to the teacher. Maybe you keep 60% and you give 40 to the teacher. Whatever it is, you would input that number right here like this. Now, there is also the option, if you're not sure, you can also do a dollar amount. So if you look above, see we have $200 per month listed. Let's say that you don't do a percentage, but you know that you give all of your teachers $90 of the $200 a month. You could do it like that, but I think it's a little better for this example that we'll just say 50%, and we'll move on from there. So how long does a student typically stay in months? This is our final variable. So there's two ways to estimate this. I think the easier way is just total month duration. So essentially, if you just look at on average how many months a student stays before they stop lessons, that would be the figure that you're after. Again, we want to be as accurate as humanly possible, so it is a good idea to try and be conservative on this figure. But essentially, all that you're after is how long does a student stay on average. So you could, for instance, put 10, 9, whatever it is. Now, conversely, you can also estimate with churn. I think the majority of people would probably prefer to just do a total month, like students on average stay 9, 10 months. And you would get that data by just, looking at all your past students, seeing when they started, seeing when they stopped, and just getting that total duration and adding it up and dividing it. If you want, you could do a churn method. I just have here's another option. So for example, how this would work is it basically be what percentage of new students quit each month. So if 10 new students started in January, by the next time they get billed in February, how many would have quit? So for example, if one quit, you'd enter 10%. If two, you'd enter 20. So basically just out of new students specifically from a month-to-month duration, how many would quit? I think it's a little easier to just do this method where you just do a total duration of months. That being said, sometimes that's hard information to get a grasp on. So that's it. Those are the three figures. You get basically how much you charge a month. You get essentially how much you have to pay out per student. So this is not rent. This is not anything like that. This is costs that you explicitly have to pay per added student. And then lastly, just how long do they stay? So let's say it's 11 for the example. And there you go. It pops right up. So each new student is worth $1,100 on average. And like I said, if you wanted to use a different figure, like say monthly revenue, let's say it's just random numbers, 6,000, and you've got 24 students, Now it would be 1375, right? And it goes up and down in real time. So for example, no, it's actually, 20 students, it's 1650, or I lied, it's 29 students, well, it's 1138. That's it. That's all you need to get this figure. Pretty simple, just three numbers in total: monthly revenue, how much percentage you keep, and then how long do they actually stay. Now, second portion that I'm gonna break down is, why do you even need to know this number? And if you actually click, what does this mean right here? Well, we'll get the answer. And I'll just kind of skim through this really quickly so you can get a feel for why you'd actually want to know this number. So to kick it off, what this number means, it's basically based on the numbers you input, number one. So this figure is only as accurate as the numbers you give it. So if you're not too confident on, say, the total duration that a student stays, then obviously that's going to strike down the validity of this number a little bit. Just keep that in mind. But basically, it's a single student who stays for the average duration you put in will generate you, in this example, $1,138 profit for your business. So yeah, that's the kind of baseline of it. And some instances where this would be very useful is for advertising, right? So normally when music schools or music teachers start to get into the advertising game, this number is so king to know, because if you start to run ads, you might think, well, I'm just going to start running ads, see how many students I get from it, and we'll see how much it costs, and we'll see if I think it's worth it. That can be a dangerous game to play. With a figure like this, you can actually know how much you're willing to spend and how much it's worth it to spend on a student. So for example, it would actually be better if we had a little bit easier numbers to work with. So let me give us some easier numbers to work with. All right, so $1,000, nice and easy. So that basically means that you can spend up to $1,000 on ads to get one student and still break even on average over the duration. Not saying that's a good situation, but you could. A general baseline that people try to hit right here is a 3x return. So at a minimum, if you can get, $330, a student at $330, on average, provided this figure is accurate, you will get a 3x return over their lifetime. So you see how that's extremely valuable just to know this stuff before committing to something like ads, and you don't have to kind of feel around a dark room and say, well, I'm going to run ads and see how well it goes. You actually have some benchmark based on your music business on what you're trying to achieve. And of course, like anything with ads, I'll leave you guys to read this if you want to use it. Ads cost money up front. It takes a little bit of time to make the money back. A couple key things I want to touch on is that this is an average, not a promise. So in other words, this number represents what a student is worth on average across your entire roster. So it doesn't mean that every student that walks through the door is going to be worth $1,000. It just means based on the numbers you fed it, on average, that's how much a student is worth over their lifetime until they quit. So again, that's why the more accurate figures you put in, the more you can lean on this number and the more reliable it can actually be. So the one thing I do want to note is the student lifespan specifically, that final value we put, is where I see a lot of people overestimating, and it can really distort the figures. So a lot of teachers kind of think back to their longest staying students without kind of taking into account the full picture of, maybe students that leave pretty quickly. Because in reality, some students start and they quit after 3 lessons, and some might stay with you for 2-3 years. So it's very important to just, take kind of a holistic view and really try and get the data so it's as accurate as possible and you consider everything. Because even just overestimating by 3-4 months really can inflate this figure quite a bit. And a couple things to just account for is referrals. So obviously, this calculator can't really calculate referrals if one student turns into 2, turns into 3 if they refer extra people. Payment issues, missed lessons, no-shows, cancellations, things like price increases or upselling them into a different program like a piano lab or a band or whatever. If you have extra things that people can pay for and become a student of, obviously it's a little bit tougher to track. But that's it. I hope you guys got some value from this, but basically to summarize it all up, you want to know how much a student is worth to you, whether you're running ads, whether you just want to take a step back from your music business and say, hey, how much effort am I willing to get a student? It helps put it into much better perspective. Because even if it's not ads, you might run, social media and you're putting an effort every day to make social media posts. And if you know that a student's returning you $1,000 on average, then it kind of makes it a little more relative to, how many posts leads to how many students. Okay, this amount of effort gives me roughly this amount of money. The whole point of this is just to try and quantify your effort, whether it's in ads, social media, so you can see a little bit more clearly essentially how to get your business in a better position. It's just a better viewpoint. So that's it. You guys can use this for free as of right now. I'm going to drop the link down below in the description, and you can just click on it and try this out for you. You can mess around with it, put random numbers. Someone stays for 100 months, for example, and just take a look at it. I don't know how long I'm going to leave it accessible for free, so if you click on the link and it doesn't work, that may be why. But yeah, go ahead, give it a try for yourself. Hopefully it helps, and leave any questions you have down below. Awesome.